The most dangerous lie you've ever been told wasn't whispered by a con artist in a dark alley. It was handed to you by people who genuinely loved you, people who wanted the best for you, people who had no idea they were programming you for a life of quiet financial servitude. Go to school, get good grades. Take on student loans because it's an investment in yourself. Land a stable job with benefits. Contribute to your 401k. Buy a house with a 30-year mortgage. Work for 4 decades. Retire at 65. And hope you have enough left to enjoy whatever years remain before your body gives out. This is the script. And right now, roughly 99% of Americans are following it with religious devotion, never once stopping to ask a devastating question. Who wrote this script, and who benefits when you follow it? Because here's the brutal truth that will make some of you deeply uncomfortable. The system isn't broken. The system is working exactly as designed. You were never meant to reach financial freedom. You were meant to be a reliable, predictable, compliant economic unit that generates tax revenue, services debt, and consumes just enough to keep the machine running while never accumulating enough capital to actually exit the game. The script isn't a path to prosperity. It's a conveyor belt to the slaughterhouse. And the only people who escape are the ones who realize the exits aren't marked on the map they gave you. My name is Godwin. Today, I'm dismantling the architecture of financial captivity that has been constructed around you since childhood. Not to depress you, but to liberate you. We're going to examine why the traditional path virtually guarantees you'll never achieve true financial independence, how the lack of financial education in America is not an accident but a feature, and what the small percentage of people who actually build wealth understand that the masses never will. If you're someone who values confronting hard truths over comfortable delusions, if you understand that real financial clarity requires examining ideas that polite society prefers to ignore, you may want to join this network by subscribing. This is a kind of analysis that doesn't exist in mainstream financial media, because mainstream financial media exists to keep you consuming, not to help you escape. Let's begin. Consider the trajectory you were placed on before you had any say in the matter. At age 5 or 6, you enter the education system, where you spend the next 12 to 16 years, sometimes more, being trained in a very specific way. You learn to sit in rows, to raise your hand before speaking, to complete assignments by deadlines set by authority figures, to accept grades as the measurement of your worth, and to believe that compliance would be rewarded with advancement. What you were not taught conspicuously and deliberately was anything about money. You graduated high school able to analyze literature and solve quadratic equations, but you had no understanding of compound interest, tax optimization, asset allocation, leverage, cash flow, or the fundamental difference between assets and liabilities. You could dissect a frog, but couldn't read a balance sheet. You understood mitochondria, but not how the Federal Reserve's monetary policy directly impacts your purchasing power and standard of living. This wasn't an oversight. The American education system, funded and structured by corporate and government interests, produces employees, not entrepreneurs. It produces consumers, not investors. It produces people who will reliably show up, follow instructions, and trade the best hours of their best years for a paycheck that gets immediately redistributed to landlords, banks, the IRS, and corporations selling you things you don't need to impress people you don't like. And then came the debt. The average American graduates with student loan debt approaching $40,000, often much higher for advanced degrees. You were told this was good debt, an investment in your future earning potential. But let's examine what actually happened. At 17 or 18 years old, before you could legally drink alcohol, because society recognized you lacked the judgment for that decision, you were encouraged to sign loan documents committing you to decades of payments. You entered the workforce already in a hole, already owing, already forced to prioritize income over purpose, safety over risk, the immediate paycheck over the asymmetric opportunity. The debt didn't just cost you money, it cost you optionality. It cost you the ability to take the unpaid internship that could have changed your trajectory, the freedom to start a business in your 20s when you had energy and minimal responsibilities, the psychological bandwidth to think beyond next month's payment. This is what economists call opportunity cost, and it is a silent killer of financial potential. Every dollar you send to service debt is a dollar that isn't compounding in your favor. Every year spent climbing out a hole is a year you couldn't spend building something. But perhaps you managed the debt reasonably well. Perhaps you landed the job, the one with a respectable title, and the benefits package, and the matching 401k contribution. Now you're a part of the 9-to-5 American corporate structure, which sounds stable until you understand what you've actually traded away. You've traded time for money, which is the most fundamental trap in finance because time is absolutely finite, while money is theoretically infinite. Every hour you spend generating profit for someone else is an hour you're not spending building assets that generate income, whether you work or not. You've accepted linear income in a world where wealth is built through exponential returns. The person who works 40 hours makes 40 hours worth of pay. The person who builds a system or acquires an asset that works while they sleep can generate returns completely disconnected from their personal time investment. This is the asymmetric upside that the wealthy understand and the middle class never grasps. And let's examine that 401k for a moment, because this is where the sophistication of the script becomes apparent. The 401k is marketed as the cornerstone of your retirement strategy. You contribute pre-tax dollars. Your employer might match percentage, and the money grows tax-deferred until retirement. Sounds beneficial until you understand the full picture. First, you've locked your capital away until age 59 and a half, with severe penalties for early access. Your money is imprisoned, unavailable for the investments or opportunities that might actually accelerate your wealth building. Second, you bet that tax rates will be lower when you retire than they are now, a bet that looks increasingly unfavorable given the trajectory of national debt and the mathematical certainty that taxes must rise to fund promised entitlements. Third, you've been funneled into a limited menu of investment options, typically mutual funds with expense ratios that quietly erode your returns over decades. The 401k isn't primarily for your benefit. It's for the benefit of the financial services industry that collects fees on your money for 40 years, and for the government that gets to tax your distributions in retirement. You've been handed a tool and told it's a gift without understanding who designed it and why. The Roth IRA offers a variation. Pay taxes now, grow tax-free. Withdraw tax-free in retirement. Better in many scenarios, but still operating within the same fundamental constraint. Your capital is locked away, inaccessible during the years when you might actually need it to capitalize on opportunities that could change your financial trajectory entirely. The wealthy don't build wealth by maximizing retirement account contributions. They build wealth by acquiring cash-flowing assets, by using debt strategically as leverage, by understanding the tax code not as a burden, but as an instruction manual written to benefit those who know how to read it. This brings us to perhaps the most critical deficit in American financial education: tax literacy. The U.S. tax code is thousands of pages long, and its complexity is not accidental. It is a document written largely by lobbyists representing those with capital, creating legal mechanisms to minimize tax burden for people who understand how to use them. The employee earning W. 2 income pays at the highest effective rates with the fewest deductions. The business owner, the investor, the real estate holder, these individuals operate in an entirely different tax universe, one with depreciation, 1031 exchanges, opportunity zones, qualified business income deductions, and countless other provisions that the average American has never heard of. You were taught that paying taxes is patriotic. You were not taught that the tax code is designed to be navigated, that there is nothing illegal or immoral about structuring your affairs to minimize what you owe, and that the wealthy have been doing this for generations while you've been proudly overpaying. And then there's the Federal Reserve, the entity that most Americans cannot accurately describe despite its complete control over the value of every dollar they earn and save. The Fed determines monetary policy, sets interest rates, and can create currency from nothing, a power that fundamentally transfers wealth from savers to borrowers, from those holding cash to those holding assets. When the Fed expands the money supply, as it has done aggressively for the past several decades, and especially since 2008, the purchasing power of your savings declines. The dollar you saved last year buys less today. The salary you negotiated is worth less each month. Meanwhile, asset prices, real estate, stocks, businesses, inflate in nominal terms, benefiting those who already own them. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is documented monetary policy. And it means that simply working hard and saving money in a bank account is a guaranteed losing strategy over time. Inflation is a silent tax on financial ignorance, and it falls heaviest on those who follow the script. Now, why do 99% of people continue following this path despite its obvious failure to produce financial freedom? The answer lies in understanding three psychological forces that keep the herd moving toward the slaughterhouse: social proof, loss aversion, and identity attachment. Social proof is a tendency to assume that if everyone is doing something, it must be correct. When your parents took this path, your teachers endorsed this path, your peers are taking this path, and all media representation of success involves this path. It requires extraordinary intellectual independence to question it. Humans are tribal creatures. We evolved in environments where separation from the group meant death. The instinct to conform is not a character weakness. It's a survival mechanism. But in the context of financial strategy, following the crowd leads to average results by definition. And average results in America mean retiring with inadequate savings, being one medical emergency away from bankruptcy, and spending your final years in financial anxiety rather than freedom. Loss aversion is even more powerful. Studies consistently show that humans experience the pain of loss approximately twice as intensely as the pleasure of equivalent gain. This means that the fear of losing what you have, the stable job, the predictable paycheck, the social approval of following the accepted path, feels more threatening than the potential gain of taking an unconventional route. Every time you consider leaving the security of employment to build something of your own, every time you think about investing in an unfamiliar asset class, every time you contemplate making a decision that your social circle won't understand, loss aversion whispers that the risk isn't worth it. Stay safe. Stay comfortable. Stay broke. And identity attachment is perhaps the deepest trap of all. Over years of following the script, you develop an identity around your position within it. You become the responsible one who pays all debts on time. You become the company person who sacrifices for career advancement. You become the good citizen who doesn't question the system. To change your financial behavior requires changing your identity, and identity change is psychologically similar to death. Part of who you believe yourself to be must die for a new self to emerge. Most people will choose financial mediocrity over identity death, which is why most people will never escape. But there's something else at play here, something darker and more systemic. The financial illiteracy of the American population is maintained because it is profitable to those who benefit from an uninformed populace. Consumer debt is profitable. Ignorance of tax strategy is profitable. Misunderstanding of investment options is profitable. Credit scores, that peculiar American invention that determines so much of your economic life, exist not to help you but to categorize you for lenders, to make you predictable, to ensure you remain a reliable source of interest payments. Every piece of the system is designed to extract maximum value from your labor and your consumption while keeping you running on what psychologists call a hedonic treadmill, always earning more, always spending more, never actually advancing, always believing that the next raise or the next purchase will finally bring satisfaction. So what do the 1% who actually achieve financial freedom understand that the 99% miss? They understand that the path to wealth runs directly counter to almost everything you've been taught. They understand that debt can be a tool of liberation rather than bondage when used to acquire assets that generate income exceeding the cost of the debt. They understand that owning a business or assets means paying taxes on net profit rather than gross income, fundamentally changing the mathematics of wealth accumulation. They understand that multiple income streams, particularly passive ones, provide security that no single employer ever could. They understand that financial education is a personal responsibility that must be pursued relentlessly because no institution will provide it for you. They understand that the opinion of the crowd is precisely wrong on almost every important question. That popular consensus is almost always a contrarian indicator. They understand that their single most valuable asset is time, and they refuse to trade it cheaply. The question I want you to sit with, and I mean really sit with uncomfortably, is this. If the script actually led to financial freedom, why are so few people financially free? Why do the majority of Americans reach retirement age with less than $100,000 saved, unable to maintain their lifestyle without continued work or government support? Why is financial stress the leading cause of anxiety in the country, affecting relationships, health, and quality of life? The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. The path you were given does not lead where you were told it leads. And at some point, you have to decide whether you will continue walking it simply because everyone around you is walking it, or whether you will accept the discomfort of stepping off a conveyor belt and charting a different course. I'm not telling you that there's an easy alternative. There isn't. Building financial freedom requires education, sacrifice, risk tolerance, and often years of effort before seeing significant results. It requires becoming the kind of person who can delay gratification, who can withstand criticism and confusion from those still on the script, who can sit with uncertainty rather than demanding the false security of a predictable paycheck. It requires developing skills that the market actually values rather than credentials that institutions told you to acquire. It requires understanding capital allocation, how to deploy your money and time in ways that generate returns rather than simply trading both for consumption. But here's what's on the other side. Waking up without an alarm because your income arrives whether you work that day or not. Making decisions based on what you actually want rather than what you can afford. Having the freedom to say no to anything that doesn't align with your values because you're not financially trapped. Watching your net worth compound year after year rather than cycling between zero and debt like a hamster on a wheel. Being able to help your family, support causes you believe in, and live without the constant low-grade anxiety that characterizes most American financial lives. This is financial freedom, and despite what the script told you, it is achievable, but not on their path. Never on their path. The system will continue exactly as designed. The schools will continue producing employees. The banks will continue offering debt as solutions to problems that debt often caused. The financial services industry will continue selling products that primarily benefit them. The tax code will continue rewarding those who understand it while punishing those who don't. The Federal Reserve will continue policies that favor asset owners over wage earners. None of this will change because you understand it. What changes is you. What changes is whether you continue participating as a compliant economic unit or whether you begin, today, the process of extracting yourself from a game you were never meant to win. I'll leave you with this thought. There is no neutral choice here. You are either moving toward financial freedom or away from it with every decision. The money you spend on consumption versus investment. The hours you spend on entertainment versus education. The risks you avoid because they're unfamiliar versus the risk of doing nothing different and arriving at the same destination as everyone else. Not deciding is a decision. Staying on the script is a decision. And it is a decision that leads, with statistical certainty, to the same outcome it has led for generations of Americans who followed the same path believing it would be different for them. The exits exist. They're just not marked on the map you were given. Some people find them through entrepreneurship, building systems that generate income independently of their time. Some find them through real estate, acquiring assets that appreciate while producing cash flow. Some find them through investing in equity, not the index funds pushed on you by the 401k menu, but genuine ownership stakes in businesses they understand. Some find them through mastering high-value skills and commanding compensation that allows rapid capital accumulation. The specific path matters less than the recognition that the conventional path leads nowhere you want to be. 99% of people will never reach financial freedom because they will never question the script deeply enough to realize it's not a path to freedom at all. It's a path to compliant, manageable, predictable lives that benefit everyone except the person living them. You now have information that most people will never encounter because they'll never seek it. What you do with it is entirely your decision. But understand this, the clock is running. Every day spent on the wrong path is a day of compounding lost. Every year of your irreplaceable life traded for a paycheck that barely keeps you running in place is a year you don't get back. The math is merciless, and it does not care about your good intentions or your plans to start later. The script promises security and delivers anxiety. It promises retirement and delivers dependence. It promises success and delivers mediocrity. And it only works, meaning it only continues to exist as long as people believe in it. The moment you stop believing, the moment you see the structure for what it is, the spell breaks. You're no longer under its power. You're no longer a passenger on someone else's conveyor belt heading toward their destination. The question now is simple, though the answer will define the rest of your financial life. Will you keep following their script, Or will you finally start writing your own?